iRacing right now.
He's got traction, he's got with the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my God!
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to a SimSpeed TV presentation here on the iRacing Esports Network. Once again, it is the Majors Series, the International Division, the Belgian Grand Prix from Spa-Francorchamps, driving 44 laps around this legendary Belgian circuit in the 2009 Williams FW31 F1 car, presenting, of course, supporting Child Fund International, the charity on board for this particular round. International Division has been one of the more interesting broadcasts that we've seen on SimSpeed TV. Certainly brought forward some interesting strategies, some drivers coming to the top that we've not necessarily thought about coming into the season. And the Belgian Grand Prix, despite the pace differential that we've seen, we're definitely interested to see how it goes. My name's Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box once again, Ryan Jones. Ryan, we come to a Formula One venue here in a Formula One car. Some of the fastest racing we're going to be seeing all season in the Majors Series.
Yeah, good evening everyone, and yeah, Spa and Formula One racing are, a combination synonymous with each other, and it's a track very much suited to the open wheel and the high downforce, isn't it? When the World Endurance Championship comes here as well, with their big downforce prototype cars, they're well suited to the track and that high speed dip, and then a rise through or over Eau Rouge, and then up to Raidillon, and then down into that hard braking zone is one of the most death-defying places in the sport of motor racing.
Yeah, certainly is. And Spa-Francorchamps has been doing its thing for 90 years now. We're going to take a look at where exactly it is, and you'll be able to see quite a bit with regard to the history of the circuit around this area. In the Liège region of Belgium, in the Ardennes Mountains, very heavily wooded area, green all year, and with very unpredictable weather a lot of the time in real life as well. There is the circuit. And you see the older, larger circuit just jetting off there to the bottom right. 19 and 20 turns around this circuit. Very fast, very flowing, just over 7 kilometers in length. And some heavy braking zones into slow corners that'll definitely challenge the drivers and make for some interesting passing. Also joining us here tonight is David Haynes. David, you've come in just to jump in, have a chat. while we go about our racing action here tonight. The Major Series coming to Spa-Francorchamps. It's going to be quite the test for the drivers and a high downforce car around this track.
Yeah, g'day Reese, g'day everyone. I mean, Spa is a beautiful track that makes some action with all sorts of cars, but the history that it has going back a long, long time is with Grand Prix racing, is with Formula One cars. So every little tweak, every little change, every piece of history at this circuit is towards this kind of fast racing. And it is really going to separate your strongest drivers and those drivers with talent beyond means from everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And once we get cars out on circuit, we're going to see what exactly it takes to get the best out of these cars. But before we do, we've got to take a look at the championship context going into this round. First off, we're going to take a look at the Legends standings. And Harold Stadler, only 10 points ahead of Daniel Stevens there. They've been fighting at the top of the Legends Championship for quite some time this season, and Ryan, it's still an incredibly close battle between those guys. They are head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of these standings, so this championship for drivers over 50 years of age is probably going to go down to the wire by season's end.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, and they're two drivers that are good in everything they jump into. Maybe not race-winning pace in the things they jump in, but they're always consistently there or thereabouts, and that's what you need when you have a championship that transcends so many different disciplines, racetracks and race cars over the course of almost an entire year's worth of action. So 10 points difference right now, and I think we might see that gap swing further in one or the other's favour at the end of this race, because this race today is going to be very taxing on both car and machine alike.
Yeah, absolutely is, and got to think about the one-stop strategy, potentially a two-stop as well, really testing drivers' versatility both in this race and throughout the rest of the season. Here's the sportsman standings. Currently, Stephen Williams has quite the gap over Gavin Barber. Martin Houston only 30 points behind Barber there in second place. Looks like gaps are pretty close for fourth on back. Phil Otto and Matt Andrews, with Bradley Matheson only covered by less than 30 points there, David. This championship for the lower I-rating drivers certainly gives drivers something else to race for.
Yeah, something for us to talk about, something for all of these guys to aim towards, to put their practice towards. And as you can see, all the numbers there, very close indeed. No one can take anything for granted.
No, for sure. Matt Hunter, 792 points there, covering the top 10 in the Sportsman Championship standings. And have a look at this. These are the pro standings for the drivers of high iRacing, and Cameron Dance, the reigning series champion, only just taking the lead coming out of the last round of the series at Road America. Thomas O'Leary just a single point behind in the Kinetic International car. I tell you what, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one goes, because Cameron has definitely got the strategy brain on for the Belgian Grand Prix. He puts an awful lot of effort into it, Ryan, but Thomas O'Leary's run of form during the mid-season cannot be discounted.
No, it can't, and these two have both looked quick in the pre-qualifying and the practice as well for today's event. I think we'll see them both out in qualifying in a moment as well. 1 point is pretty much nothing after 9 rounds. Again, much like that Legends Championship, expected to go right down to the wire. But also Will Leslie, he's not out of it. He's only 73 points away. Dwayne Burns, Harold Stadler, Daniel Stevens. Of course, Stadler and Stevens, the two leading that Legends Cup, they're not out of it in Pro either. So a lot of drivers can still lay a claim to the trophy here.
Absolutely can, and Matt Danson down there in 10th spot is also making an appearance here today. First time we've seen him in the Majors Series in a short while, so he'll be looking to maximize his results and potentially break further into the top 10. And the Elite Teams Championship standings, well, once again, it is Kinetic International who have absolutely dominated this season. They've been the best prepared team. They are one of the biggest teams, and they certainly put in the hard yards round in, round out in this series. Nearly 700 points gap over MF Racing Pro. TechSense Fitstyle Motorsport, whom Dance and Sadler drive for, adrift there in third spot, but a very long way ahead of Avatar Auto Racing and the Kinetic Casuals. So it seems that the Teams Championship is pretty much wrapped up in both the Elite and Premier standings, with MF Racing Sports and MF Racing Casual with a great margin over the rest of the field in that particular championship.
Yeah, they certainly do. And obviously, those team championships are not quite as close as the rest of our individual series, rather. But I think the teams, it's very hard for them, isn't it, Reese? Because you have to pick a team that's going to do well over the entire season. And oftentimes, you don't know who's going to do well at each individual round until you get there. So picking that right combination at the start when you're allowed to can sometimes be almost an impossible task.
Yeah, it can. And we have cars now out on track here. Kinetic International, Thomas O'Leary, that second place guy in the standings for the pro standings, just showing how much speed is taken around this Spa-Francorchamps circuit in the Williams FW31. This F1 car is now about 11 years old, but still carrying a great turn of pace, David. You can see that the reaction times have to be absolutely on point if you want to be competitive in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, from 2008 to 2009 with the new Formula One rules, they tried to peg the speed back a little bit, but the V8 engines stayed the same, the tyres stayed very similar, and so of course it is a Formula One car. It is rapid beyond comprehension. Things happen maybe too quick for a normal person's brain. You've really got to get yourself into a zone to react quickly to deal with the speed. And also, your neck needs to be able to hold up.
Yeah, and you're going to have to do an awful lot of leaning in the corners as we say hello to Cameron Dance. Goodness me. He's one of 3 drivers who's going to be joining us on webcam tonight. So we'll be able to get a little bit of a view into how the drivers in the real world are reacting to their sim driving. Currently, first place in this practice session before we get into the final qualifying for this one. Dwayne Burns running a minute 49.17. Harold Stadler has gone to the top of the standings with a 48.8. But we'll be expecting times a little bit quicker than that. Drivers like Chris Owen and Scott Newton, who have made an appearance here tonight, Ryan, we would be expecting them to do at the very least 1 minute 47s around this place.
It seems incredible that you can get around this track that quickly. And these aren't even the current spec Formula One cars, are they? They're from, what year are they from, actually?
2009.
2009, yeah. And we've gone down in pace by at least 5 seconds since then, so it continues to astound how quick you can go. And in the race car and in the cockpit, you turn into a corner and you turn in and think, there's no way this is going to stick, and then it does. And next lap you go through and you manage to go even quicker through there. It just feels like you're constantly finding pace, and the grip is phenomenal, but when it falls away, you don't have much notice about it. And when they do crash or spin, they happen very quickly and can have disastrous consequences.
Absolutely. These cars, despite having the downforce pegged back from the previous generation, as David mentioned, they still generate an awful amount of downforce through the fast corners around this circuit. But as we ride on board with Harold Stadler through the flat-out Blanchimont turn, no lift at the throttle through there, so much downforce being produced, but you get on the brakes here for the bus stop chicane, and the downforce just bleeds off as you go slower and slower, and the cars are very clumsy at those low speeds. You see Harold just struggling to get the power down efficiently out of there, fighting a little bit of oversteer. These cars don't have traction control, they don't have ABS. The Williams, I believe, was fitted with a KERS system, hybrid regeneration. So at least a little bit of a power boost for the drivers thanks to that. But last few seconds now of the practice session, and we're going to be moving forward into the 15-minute Q3 session. These are the top 10 fastest drivers out of all of the qualifiers in the lead up to this race, and they'll each get their chance to run the best lap possible and try and secure pole position. So, green flag is now flying, and we're going to be getting drivers out on circuit very, very soon.
So who will be the first driver to get out and set a time? Harold Stadler going to venture out onto the racetrack first, and Cameron Dance will come behind him. Something you would take advantage of here is that slipstream, which is so often talked about in the world of F1. But at that same time, it's two sides of a coin. You get the slipstream, then you get the dirty air through the corners. So you've got to find the optimum range and either try for it or decide to just get completely out of the aero wake from the car in front and do a completely clean lap without any help down the straights.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to get a slipstream help on a lap, you kind of need to clear the car before you get to the set of corners that Scott Newton just went through down the Kemmel Straight. Yes, indeed. Having a teammate is absolutely important. You'll be able to coordinate your fastest laps. But Newton just backing off and weaving to get some heat into those slick tyres. 2009 was the first year since 1998 that Formula One used slick tyres. Bit of a return to mechanical grip in the hopes of improving the racing. And of course, this dates from before the introduction of DRS as well. So little flippy rear wing that flips up and gives you an extra boost down the straights was not introduced until 2011. So it's all down to your exit out of the corner. It's all down to the pace you can extract out of this machine if you want to make a pass. Making his way to the front of the queue has been Scott Newton, who we ride on board with, and he is going to come across the line very shortly to start his lap, swings out wide and tries to straight line the exit of the bus stop chicane as much as he can. And here we go. Time for a lap with Scott Newton for Apex Racing Team. Very late on the brakes and just struggling to get it turned in there for La Source, the first hairpin, but hard on the brakes and right up through the gears. 7 gears in these cars, and you're into top gear already as you come into the Eau Rouge Radillon section up the top of the hill. Try and clip the curb up the top there and then flat out down the Kemmel Straight, but no draft help for Mr. Newton this time round, David.
No, and I'm keeping my eye on that speed. You can see his top speed, maybe almost in miles an hour on the steering wheel there, but big braking downshift at the end of the Kemmel Straight. And here is where the balance of the car a little more important, very critical through Rivage there, which just keeps on coming.
Yeah, and through the no-name corner, Brazel across the curb, uses as much of it as he can, and then pull on the double left-hander, down a gear, and right back onto the throttle. It's amazing the amount of speed that can be carried through there. Then through to Fagnier, very fast, sweeping right into a left, slightly slower. Make sure not to use too much of that green AstroTurf, and then through into Stavilo, and then Paul Frere curve, back off the purpose-built section of the racetrack, and onto the heritage section of Spa-Francorchamps. From here on in, you're driving on what used to be public roads, Ryan.
And then, yeah, Blanchimont flat out at 300 kilometers an hour. He reaches 306 as he stomped on that brake pedal, gets it slowed down to mid-corner speed of about 80 kilometers through the second apex there. And then that power application is very tricky because the rear end wants to step out, but you've got very little time to get the power down before the line comes up. A 46.907 for him, immediately eclipsed by Chris Owen's 46.4, half a second quicker.
Yeah, good time there from Chris Owen to start things off, and Harold Stadler slotting in with a minute 47.7. Will Leslie on a 48.2, and Dwayne Burns, the slowest driver so far, on a 48.3. Burns' teammate Shane Bowen is going to be coming up to the end of his first timed lap now through Blanchimont for Avatar Auto Racing. It's almost a nothing corner in Formula One cars now. Used to be quite scary, but now it's literally just keep the throttle pinned and through the right-hander you go. So through the bus stop chicane then for Shane Bowen, and we'll see what kind of time he can set. And it looks like he is going to be just behind his teammate there, 7/10 back from Dwayne Burns, but still faster than Dean Mole for Kinetic, who sets a 49.6. Cameron Dance has managed to put himself into P4, and Jake Fox is currently on a hot lap just behind these guys. You see, once again, just how much lean Cameron Dance puts into it. That's all pace. It gains him a couple of tenths, I think, Ryan.
He is. He's repping an old school F1 shirt, isn't he? I don't think it's quite from the 2009 era. Maybe.
Oh, it is. It is actually, because McLaren still had Mercedes engines and still carried Vodafone sponsorship. So that is a period clothing there. And Lewis Hamilton was their #1 driver at the time. So Cameron Dance repping that old school McLaren charm before they brought back the papaya orange. He's got a bit of a slipstream here coming down the straight.
2008, Hamilton won that World Championship, wasn't it? His first one with McLaren, Vodafone, sponsoring the car. Had a long wait for his next one, and they came in a hurry for sure. Hopefully, our man Danny Rick has a similar thing with his first one coming in a flurry afterwards, eh? After Formula One.
I certainly hope so. Cameron, coming across the line there, was dealing with a bit of aero push towards the end, and that's going to remain fourth with that particular time. It is an improvement, only a tenth to his championship rival, Thomas O'Leary, and Jake Fox puts himself into P8 with 48.2. Very impressive time to start things off for him. So we're hearing that Owen, Newton, O'Leary, and Stadler, that's 4 of our top 5, all coming in for fresh rubber. They're all having a second run now at their pole position potential time. And Stadler out there now onto the Kemmel Straight. It's going to get them warmed up. He passes Cameron Dance there, coming into the Lecombe corner, this very fast chicane with a flat-out exit through this right-hander. Got to be careful of that curb on the exit, though, because, David, there's an awful lot of places around Spa where you can fall afoul of iRacing's automated penalty system.
Yes, indeed, there is very well known to the iRacers how strictly enforced the track limits are in several places, and in the places where race control isn't on it, it's kind of self-enforcing with the grass in other places. So especially in qualifying, where you can't afford to have any of your lap times deleted, keeping it within the white lines is absolutely crucial and not always the easiest thing to do.
No, definitely not the easiest thing to do. 47.5 there from Dwayne Burns. That advances him through into position 5. Impressive time there. A tenth faster than Will Leslie. Dean Mole just put down to 8th place and crosses the line with no improvement for him. So a bit unfortunate there, but Chris Owen and the like on fast laps once again. Shane Bowen currently plumb last in the top 10 through the chicane one more time. See if he can run a time in the 47s. It looks like it's likely. It's a 47.8 there for Shane Bowen. And he remains in position 8.
300 kilometers, just ticking over at the end of the Kemmel Straight. On board the Apex Racing team driver of Scott Newton. He's half a second away still from Chris Owen, or closer to 4/10 rather, but it's a massive gap between himself and Owen. There's only 3/10 between himself, O'Leary, and Dance behind. He's maybe not close enough to get there. Right now he is. He's closed up massively, and that is going to hurt him through the double left-hander. In terms of lap time, he would have had to get out of the throttle more and turn the wheel harder to get the car to actually stick to the racetrack like it should.
Yes, indeed. He'd be dealing with an awful lot of understeer there as the front washed out on him through Farnier, but back onto the final stretch towards the last couple of turns then for Scott Newton. Both he and Chris Owen very experienced in open wheel and high downforce cars. But at the moment, it seems like Chris Owen definitely having the edge over everyone else on one lap pace at the moment. Newton then through the bus stop chicane once more. See what kind of time Newton can set here. A 46.577. That is the improvement that he was looking for. Only a 10th now behind Owen. Great time from Scott Newton. And we go to Harold Stadler now. See if he can improve on his 7th position. 47.7 is the time that he has to beat. That's a 47.556 from him. That puts him up ahead of Will Leslie, and into position 6. So it looks like the track is just getting better and better as the session goes on. What about Christopher Owen then? Across the line, 46.4, and he goes 0.2 faster, 46.28. Excellent time from Chris Owen. A great response, David, to Scott Newton's improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Track temperature isn't cooling off. I wonder if the drivers are just, getting their eye in, rubbering up the track a little bit as well, and that's where we're seeing some of these tenths come from.
Thomas O'Leary just setting a little improvement there to a 46.9. And the gap between 5th and 6th, Ryan, check that out. Only 4 thousandths between Dwayne Burns and Harold Stadler. That's basically the difference between turning in a centimetre too late or not.
It is another reason for these cars. You can go up there with either a longer run and try and run the entire session out, run low fuel at the end, or you can obviously strap on those fresh tyres, as we've seen from a few drivers. When they're so maxed out performance, these F1 cars, the slightest amount of extra rubber getting laid down on the racetrack can make the biggest difference. That's why we're seeing these lifetime improvements, same as we see in the real world. By the way, that 4th place driver, Cameron Dance, won't be seeing him, as Scott Newton comes to pit lane, anymore in this session because he did not put enough fuel in the car and got straighted out on the racetrack. And, well, he can't go back out once he's had to manually tow back to pit lane. So that was a rookie error from Cameron Dance there.
Well, I think also a rookie error from Chris Owen as well, because he had a big crash coming out of No Name Corner just a few minutes ago, and he's escaped back to the pit lane as well. So we won't be seeing any more of our pole sitter, provisional pole sitter, in the rest of this session. So that puts the onus then on Scott Newton to make that 0.3 improvement and try and snatch away pole position. And Jake Fox taking a little bit too much curb there in the bus stop, a little bit too much throttle as well, spun the car right around. O'Leary, can he improve on his current 3rd place? Oh no, unfortunately, 0.06 of a second behind what his fastest time is. So no improvement there for Thomas O'Leary, but Scott Newton is still able to take part in the session here, and he's going at quite a rate of knots through the middle sector at the moment.
How are the fumes coming off the back of that car in front of our camera? Just the heat coming off the exhaust right there as he makes his way down the straight up. Full noise. The noise of these 2009 cars are some of the best in Formula One history.
That they are, and it's quite interesting with the V8 engines. The one of the defining factors of how to drive one of these cars is the amount of torque that these V8s produce, or lack thereof. I remember Martin Brundle would say many times in his F1 commentary that they barely produced enough torque to pull the skin off a bowl of porridge or something like that. You really don't have much low-down torque in these cars. They produce all of their power right at the top of the 18,000 RPM rev range. So you can afford to get on the throttle quite quickly in these things, but they can turn on you quite quickly.
The Toyota engine equipped in this model of Williams, famously one of the first Formula One engine to exceed 20,000 RPM for cost control and reliability reasons. They eventually got pegged back to the about 18,000 they do now, but there was a time then where the Toyota absolutely had that kind of revs noise, and they were looking for power anywhere they could get it.
So 20,000 RPM. Think back to Days of Thunder, and Cole Trickle being yelled at not to hit it. What was he not able to hit? Was it a 10,000 RPM that would blow the motor on the old NASCAR?
Yeah, something like that. Today's NASCAR stock cars rev up to about 9,500 RPM or thereabouts. Quite high rev V8s, but these things just sound like they're from another planet with the extra 9,000 RPM on top of that. Scott Newton through pull on. This is looking like a nice clean lap so far. Reminder that he has 3/10 to make up as the checkered flag flies in the session. The timer now starts 2.5 minutes that drivers have to cross the line and set their time. So can Scott Newton make an improvement?
All or nothing into the braking zone, down at the chicane. He'll be flat out, fully committed through Blanchimont. Gets through there nicely, doesn't run wide, and then brake is late as you dare. He went so deep, it astounds me how deep these cars can go into the braking zone. Get the power down. Looking for a 146.284. Can he get it? Yes,
there
he can.
goes.
Pole position, Scott Newton.
Excellent time from Scott Newton, and I think Chris Owen will be ruining that mistake he made, crashing the car and having to tow back to pit lane, because that robbed him of the chance to respond to Scott Newton's great late session pace. Harold Stadler and Dean Moll are going to be some of the next cars across the line here. Can Moll improve on 9th place? He sets a 47.3. That is excellent. Great improvement all the way up to P5, right at the very end of the session. That is what you want. Harold Stadler improves as well to position 7.
Dean Moll found 0.8 of a second at the end there. That's mega.
Certainly is, and he'll be extremely happy with that one. Moving up an extra couple of rows on the grid. So there we go. That is Q3 over, and we'll be heading into the race session very shortly. It was Scott Newton on pole. Chris Owen's going to join him on the front row. Thomas O'Leary and Cameron Dance, our championship contenders, lining up side by side on the second row of the grid with Moll and Stadler behind them. Dwayne Burns and Will Leslie 7th and 8th, with Shane Bowen and Jake Fox rounding out the top 10. Coming up very shortly, we've got 44 laps coming up at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in the Liège region in Belgium. It is the Belgian Grand Prix, the 10th round of the international division of the Majors Series. Here on the iRacing Esports Network with SimSpeed TV, we will be back very shortly to bring you the racing action.
where the field is rolling out for the start of today's 400-lap race on this 0.625-mile racetrack. Here's the starting lineup. On the pole from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the number 9 Coors Ford qualifying and Winston Cup race from North Wilkesboro is underway. Everybody nicely through turns number 1 and 2 as Bill Elliott has the lead and Dale Earnhardt has jumped into second position, followed by Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison.
Georgia, Bill Elliott, straining car number 9 to bring it home. 10 car length, Bill Elliott, 2-time winner of the Great American Race. Now the out of fuel Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt is going to win the Trans-South 500, his second win of 1987.
Oh boy.
Right side. Still there. Wide. Still there. All right.
Whoop.
Still there.
Oh boy. Oh.
Wide.
Oh, we got him.
You're right.
Oh my god. What?
100.
Wow. Hey, good race, good race.
Opportunity at this stage, and he just needs to keep his nose clean and keep doing what he's doing at the moment because he's doing it right. That's a big slide from Preston up Blue Yard.
How has he saved it? Oh my word! What a save! An iRacing top 10. You need to put that save back in. I want a replay of that one as we see the likes of Scott Zlowski going on.
The last chicane. I think this will be the opportunity if there is going to be one, and you'll see here Purnell will defend as he is sitting on the inside line there. What can the Porsche do? He's going to try and go around the outside. I'm not sure he's going to get that to stick as he pushes it through, and he's managed to do it. He's managed to get through for the lead. On the second to last corner of the race, he has managed to get through to the lead, Braden Nash, and to take the lead of this race. He's going to snatch it from Purnell.
But they weren't They weren't utilizing it as much as this is going to be trouble down at 3. Never mind, they give him room now. Come on, look at that! What a save!
Oh my goodness!
Save by who is that? Michael Frisch. That's where traction control is your friend.
How in the world did he save that?
Holy.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get involved.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh no!
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
It is race time here in the Belgian Grand Prix, round 10 of the International Division of the Majors Series, supporting Child Fund International and brought to you by the Majors Garage. Once again, for SimSpeed TV, myself, Reese Gardiner, along with Ryan Jones and David Haynes here in the commentary box. Q3 has just been run and won, and it's going to be Scott Newton who is starting from the pole position alongside Chris Owen. Both of those guys seem to have the edge over the rest of the field in terms of one lap pace, but one lap is not going to be the point of tonight. You got 44 of them to do around this magnificent Spa-Francorchamps circuit in the Liège region. So just over 4 minutes into the pre-race warm-up session. It's only 10 minutes. We haven't got much time left until we get going for this race. Alexander Sheridan, one of the drivers out on track here at the moment, a driver that we did not see in the Q3 session, but certainly having the chance to vault himself up the order. So, coming off qualifying, Ryan, it was a fantastic run from Scott Newton. He's definitely put himself in the box seat for the potential race victory, but it did seem like Chris Owen, were it not for his crash and having to tow back to pit lane, might have run a time similar.
Yeah, well, I thought Owen had the edge until Newton put down an absolutely blistering lap right at the end. The extra little bit of rubber on the track, obviously proving to pay dividends for him. So, going to be an interesting fight. Obviously, Owen crashed, so does that mean his consistency isn't that good? I mean, that raises a question, doesn't it? Because this is a 44-lap race, a pit stop as well, maybe 2, depending on which strategy you want to take. So, plenty to answer for in this one, and a lot of fast drivers that didn't make that top 10 shootout as well. My eye goes straight to Matt Danson, but also Michael Skurlock as well.
Yes, indeed. There's quite a few drivers here that could definitely bring themselves up the order through consistency, like Daniel Stevens here, who's fighting with Harold Stadler for top honours in the Legends Championship standings for drivers over 50 years of age. And Daniel is another one of the drivers who's going to be joining us on webcam tonight, so we can see what his inputs are IRL. He's currently experiencing an awful lot of aero wash there behind the kinetic machine, demonstrating very well through pull-on just how much understeer is caused by running very close behind another car, having to back off just slightly through Farnier. But he's got a great bit of kit there as Daniel. He's certainly got everything at his disposal there to try and get past the kinetic machine.
But does he have a hydration station for the race?
Yeah, that's going to be important. Formula One cars, very hard to drive and super quick as well, really takes it out of you in terms of the hydration stakes. So if he has a water bottle by him, he would definitely make sure to use it. Oh, potential move there coming through the bus stop chicane. Kinetic car may just let him go here. No, a little bit of racing experience here for Daniel Stevens, potentially setting up a move into La Source. But Mr. Sheridan certainly putting himself in a good position there for some race experience. Let's talk strategy for a second as these guys demonstrate the slipstream down the Kemmel Straight. Stevens almost going off the circuit there, but he may just have the overspeed over Sheridan here. Yep, looks like he is indeed ahead before they get to Lacombe. But in terms of the strategy, it'll either be a one-stop or a two-stop, and you can refuel in this generation of Formula One cars. Refueling was banned in 2010, so 2009, the year these cars come from, is the last year in which you were allowed to refuel in race. For a one-stopper, Cameron Dance is telling us that you'd probably look at 79.5 kilograms of fuel per stint for 22 laps. For a two-stopper, you'd want to split it into 3 stints of around 14 to 15 laps each, which would mean you'd need 54 kilograms of fuel in the tank. 32 kilograms of fuel takes the same amount of time as it does to take 4 tires. So you got to make sure that you have a good amount of fuel ready to put into the car and make your pit stop as quick as possible. What were you going to say, Ryan?
You've just completely outed Cameron's super secret fuel numbers then.
Well, I asked him for them and he gave them to me, so it's his risk to take and his loss. Nah, not confidential at all. But roughly 160 kilograms of fuel total to get home, and the fuel burn per lap is about 3.5 kilos. So we'll be expecting drivers to either come in right at the halfway point or split the race into 3 equal stints. So at the very least, David, this may be a little bit of strategy variation to keep things interesting here.
Yeah, and of course, another question there is how much fuel do you start the race with? I mean, obviously, Formula One cars, very light, very affected by how much fuel they are carrying at any point. If you're going for that one-stop strategy, you'll probably want to start with quite a lot of fuel. But if you are starting this race with an eye to the two-stop strategy, you might want and be able to start the race a little bit lighter than some others.
Yeah, certainly. The maximum amount of fuel you can put in the car is 120 kilograms. So starting lighter and then coming in for the early stop and then loading the car up for the last couple of stints, it might just result in your second stop being a little shorter, which will really give you an advantage over your rivals later on in the race. But we're going to see what all the permutations of that are momentarily, because the checkered flag has flown in the practice session, and we're going to get ready now to go green in the Belgian Grand Prix here in the International Majors Series. The grid is now up, and we know the top 10 from qualifying. It's Scott Newton and Chris Owen on the front row, Thomas O'Leary and Cameron Dance starting from 3rd and 4th, with Dean Moll and Harold Stadler in 5th and 6th. Burns and Leslie in 7th and 8th, with Shane Bowen and Jake Fox rounding out the top 10. Ryan, the next set of drivers headed up there by Matt Danson.
Yeah, Danson just missing out on the top 10 shootout. Seth the Merchant starts alongside him, then Daniel Stevens and Michael Skurlock on row 7, Wayne Taylor and Alexander Sheridan on the 8th row of the grid, ahead of Daryl Hockey, Lucas Schleppers, Jack Stiles and John King, starting from 19th and 20th.
And the final 4 cars on the grid, Kloet, who's recently left Middle Finger Racing, which is a bit of a surprise to us. Mirko Dortanak, Johnny Bell, and Jonathan Bain rounding out the 24 cars here. Everyone, almost everyone, on the grid. Reasonably warm track there of 34 degrees. The revs rising as we get ready to go for the Majors Series in Belgium. And through they go. Scott Newton absolutely nailing the start there along with Chris Owen, but my goodness, already that's Harold Stadler with heavy damage and into the wall, just coming together with another car into turn 1. He's lost all of his aerodynamics and it looks like he is out of the race already. Michael Skurlock starting from the pit lane, but for the lead, Chris Owen already advancing now on Scott Newton with a mega slipstream down the Kemmel Straight. Look at the overspeed he has, and he is through and by Scott Newton before they're even halfway down for second, side by side between O'Leary and Dance, the 2 championship rivals. O'Leary goes to the inside, Dance to the outside. Owen starting to gap Newton already, but from third on back, it's starting to look really close here, Ryan. Have a look at this. Shane Bowen and Seth DeMerchant side by side. Through goes DeMerchant potentially. Can Bowen hold on? My goodness, he's got the inside there for No Name, but DeMerchant tries his best to hold the outside, and they're going to go side by side into Pouon.
Daniel Stevens behind has got nowhere to go. Finally, they go single file and tuck in behind each other. I was having flashbacks to 2012 for a moment there as Harold Stadler edged across the track and got turned into the pit wall. Thankfully, he did not take 5 other cars with him like we saw in that 2012 infamous start crash in the Belgian Grand Prix. So lap 1, 3/4 of the way done, with only one incident so far. On board with Daniel Stevens now sitting in 11th place. That is DeMerchant ahead of him. These guys have all gained 1 spot, courtesy of Harold Stadler. In fact, Stevens has gained 2 off the start line here. Matt Danson being one of the big gainers early on board and at home with Stevens as well now.
Yes, and Seth DeMerchant just in front of Daniel Stevens. They're having a little bit of a look at Shane Bowen, but oh my goodness, we got a car spinning out of the chicane.
Styles.
That's Jack Stiles. We saw him just bumping a car out of the way coming into Fanye just before, so he's going to have to go all the way to the back. It's not entirely over for Harold Stadler. He's making his way back to the pits. You do get a spare car in the Majors Series, so he does have a chance to come back from this incident. There goes Cameron Dance through on the kinetic car of Thomas O'Leary. Another excellent slipstream job there down the Kemmel Straight, and he's through before they get to the braking zone. Cameron Dance looking very satisfied with that one, David.
Yeah, he certainly does. And of course, this is a circuit where people try different downforce levels. You see some very low downforce trims, you see some higher downforce. And maybe we saw some of that come in there, but Seth DeMerchant, who we were looking at earlier, troubles for him now.
Yeah, he's got some damage on his front wing. That's been an issue for him into Lecombe, and it looks like it's something that he did all on his own. Or maybe it was a slight contact there with Will Leslie. They all came together into the corner. Through goes DeMerchant. Leslie, I don't know if that was vague contact, but at the very least, DeMerchant was over the curb, and that ended up damaging his front wing, so he's walking wounded right now, Ryan.
It looked like he didn't give him the contact, but DeMerchant definitely felt it. Take from that what you will. As we head back on board with Dwayne Burns sitting in 5th, just behind O'Leary, who has already lost out on this lap, and is now going to feel the pressure into the final 2 corners as Burns closes and took a slightly shallower line in the braking zone, just filling the mirrors of that car in front. But he has to bide his time because he knows his opportunity is going to come when they get out of turn 1 here and run down towards Eau Rouge Radion and up the Kemmel Straight. And did O'Leary just grab a little bit of the grass then on the entry? It looked like he might have. Oh,
yeah, he did.
As well. Daniel Stevens has also found trouble at the last corner and goes back to 20th.
Yeah, he does indeed. And seeing a car making a tour into pit lane, Seth DeMerchant with Stevens spinning at the bus stop. Quick modem simulation replay then. See what's going on here. and it was a self-spin, just took too much curb. Meanwhile, back live, Dwayne Burns really challenging Thomas O'Leary into Lacombe, but having to pull out of it. O'Leary back ahead, and now there is the gap back to Dwayne Burns there.
There's actually 2 cars that got involved with that spin from Daniel Stevens. It looked like one of the Kinetic cars, potentially, and I didn't see who the second one was. Jake Fox was the first car to just nose it gently into Daniel Stevens, and someone else followed him as well. Middle of the racetrack.
Of Jake Fox, he's lost his rear wing. He has no rear wing.
So that car that came in at the very end of the shot before he flicks away, I would dare say, is probably the culprit for that damage.
How is he not spinning through Pouhon? The rear wing, goodness me, the rear wing of a Formula One car provides an awful lot of the car's balance and downforce. And oh, there we go. That's what having no rear wing will do to you. Poor Jake Fox there, stuck in the runoff area off Farnier. He's got to be careful to keep the engine running there because these cars do not have an onboard starter. Scott Newton, meanwhile, continues to doggedly pursue Chris Owen. He's still in slipstream range, but just holding back far enough that his downforce isn't affected too much by the dirty air.
Big mistake from Thomas O'Leary, and it's caused a bigger mistake for Dwayne Burns. Going to get collected by the kinetic machine of Dean Mole, and they've now come together and lost a bunch of positions. That is hugely unfortunate for both drivers because it was neither of their mistakes to trigger that incident.
Yeah, we'll go to a replay of that one because from Dwayne Burns' perspective, was certainly not optimal. There goes O'Leary spinning. Burns has to take avoiding action, but then over the AstroTurf, he loses all his grip, and then, oh my goodness, the poor kinetic car there of Dean Mole with absolutely nowhere to go, and they're stuck there on the circuit. So both of those drivers massively suffering. They're back into the pits, though, Burns and Jake Fox as well, to get repairs done. And Thomas O'Leary is around properly, missing his nose. His nose is gone. So Thomas O'Leary losing out massively now in his championship battle against Cameron Dance, losing the spot to Matt Danson just before that. We'll see what happened here. This is O'Leary making the move on Danson and just makes a little bit of contact through the corner, and that looked very odd. I think that's technical issues and a whole lot of bad luck for Thomas O'Leary.
They are dropping like flies in the early stages. Thank goodness they've got some spare cars. Dean Mole has had another issue further into the lap. Remember, he's probably carrying some damage. He is. You can see the front wing is not level. The front right is definitely pushed up. And oh my goodness me! That is a monumental crash.
With Daniel Stevens as well. Goodness me. I don't even know how to interpret that. We're going to have to take a look at the onboard here from Stevens. Wow. So was that a hardware failure for Dean Mole? Because he slowed down awfully coming into Pouhon.
Well, the damage on the front right, I don't know whether it was enough that he had to slow down that much. But either way, Daniel Stevens had absolutely no idea about the closing rate he was about to endure as side by side, Lucas Schleppers and Matthew Clote ran over Eau Rouge, up across Radiot, and now Clote coming back at him down the inside. The best line at the end of the Camel Straight. Battle on the brakes. Clote wins out, takes away P8. David, been a wild start to this one.
Yeah, it certainly has. We've had 6 cars onto pit lane now, and there's still a bunch of other drivers out there walking wounded, just trying to nurse it to their pit window, and that might force quite a few of these drivers into a 2-stop strategy that they might not have initially been aiming for.
Yeah, so they're going to have to rejig the strategy there. It's DeMerchant, O'Leary, Stadler, and Fox who are out on track at the moment, out of the drivers that have suffered damage in these early stages. Mole and Burns are still in the pits. There goes Daryl Hockey for position 12, trying to make his way past Alexander Sheridan, but once again, you see the downforce loss through the fast corners. Massive And just up ahead of these guys, between Claude and Schleppers, it's looking
Oh,
like
no.
another move.
Oh,
for
no.
Oh, no. Whoa. Got lucky there. Daryl Hockey just getting ahead. But Lucas Schleppers now back behind Matthew Clote. Both of those guys will look to make another move coming into the Lacombe corner potentially at the end of the next straight. Daryl Hockey now with a nice gap there over Alexander Sheridan. Let's take another look at that. Coming through Blanchimont side by side. This is something that you don't often try that early in the race, and it looks like Sheridan just saw Hockey coming and thought, nah, I'm just giving this up.
That was bold and beautiful from Daryl Hockey right there. Cloet and Schleppers are side by side again. This time Schleppers is going to take it away down Camel Straight. So these two can't get away from each other. Just up the road is Dean Moll, who's come out a lap down after getting his spare car. Remarkably, only 2 cars a lap down, himself and Dwayne Burns.
Yeah, so they are currently 23rd and 24th right now. And in terms... Oh, no, Matthew Clote. There he goes. Just a late spin for him, and I think that might have damaged his front wing too.
Maybe the floorboard too, spinning up onto that curb. You know that bit where I said they couldn't get away from each other?
Well, now they have.
Positives and negatives from that spin.
Yeah.
How about that gap at the front? It's not going anywhere. It's still 0.8 of a second. I think it had been at its biggest margin actually after lap 1, and Newton's just been chipping away at him ever since then. But a little bit further back we go, back on board, back at home with Daniel Stevens, who's tucked up in behind and in the dirty air of Michael Skurlock up the road, and just behind him, wait for it, here comes Johnny Bell. He makes sure he can't get done around the outside of Blanchimont, but Johnny Bell was looking.
That he was. Fighting. Yeah, not quite, and Stevens with the... Oh, goodness me, yeah. Big mistake for Hockey at the bus stop chicane. That gives the opportunity at least to Skurlock to move ahead. But now, Hockey up ahead of Daniel Stevens. And Stevens way too late on the brakes there coming into La Source, it seemed initially anyway. So that's created another concertina effect, which means Johnny Bell now side by side with Daryl Hockey coming into Eau Rouge and Radillon. And he gets ahead just off the racing line, but maintains the speed. And now Daniel Stevens back by Daryl Hockey, the two teammates coming together, and they'll probably have a little bit of a chat to each other after that one. But side by side now into the braking zone, Stevens back ahead.
I don't know whether it was intentional or whether he was just taking the racing line, but either way, it was very clever and smart. Johnny Bell made sure the slipstream was being given to Daryl Hockey, and not Daniel Stevens, who already had the run. So he basically forced those cars behind to stay side by side and made sure he was safe heading into the corner. Well, very late on in the braking there, that car snapped around at him, almost right as he tipped it in. Maybe it's just a bit too much brake pressure still on the car.
Yeah, on board with Daniel Stevens, we get that, and we'll see what's going on here coming into the first turn. So Hockey switches over, and man, I honestly don't know what happened there. It looked like Stevens might have locked up, David.
Yeah, I mean, snatching it right at the end there. There's been a couple of little mistakes like that for Stevens. Obviously, he's super quick, but he's spun, locked up. Oh no!
Oh, there we go, Daryl Hockey. Oh, can he hold it? The two teammates side by side through Blanchimont, and Daryl Hockey coming off second best out of that one. Just a little bit of high speed instability, so that's going to be a repair job.
Little bit silly from the teammates. I won't mince that one. That was a little bit silly for teammates to do this. We saw it work out earlier, that incident, but that was not the norm. And when both cars commit, someone's got to come off worse for wear. Unfortunately for Daryl Hockey, it was him.
Yeah, well, fortunately for everyone else, Hockey exited the circuit right away and didn't involve anyone else in that incident. Stevens losing a position out of that. He'll have a bit more damage on his front wing thanks to that contact with his teammate. And I don't think the MFR squad are going to come out of this incredibly happy. But one guy that is having a good time out there is Chris Owen. He's now got a lead of over 1.7 seconds over this guy, Scott Newton. Both of these drivers have been doing very well up there in the front.
He pulled out a second on the last lap, so that's where that margin's come from. There's third place, Cameron Dance. He's 6.1 away from the race lead. 14 seconds adrift is Matt Danson, who's done very well to climb up here from 11th place at the start. Shane Bowen is a further 5 seconds away from him, sitting in 5th place at the moment. Another 4 seconds adrift is Will Leslie. Another 4 seconds adrift is Wayne Taylor, then Lucas Schleppers, keeping him for very close company. 2 seconds back to Mirko Dornak. So those three are pretty close. 9 seconds to the next group. This is Michael Skurlock and Alexander Sheridan. 1 second covering these two, fighting for the final spot inside the top 10. And Skurlock has actually taken away this spot on this lap.
He has indeed. He's made his way up ahead now of Mr. Sheridan. And he's got a nice gap in front of him to take maximum advantage of the downforce. Sheridan does not have that same luxury, but we'll see if he can line up a potential slipstream down the Kemmel Straight this time round. Michael Skurlock starting in 14th position and Alexander Sheridan starting in 16th. So both of these guys have taken advantage of other people's mistakes and stayed consistent themselves, which they'll certainly come away from that with a bit of extra confidence. Meanwhile, Johnny Bell in position 12. Coming under threat here, David, from a recovering Matthew Cloet. And Matthew, newly a privateer, seems to have a good handle on this car.
Yeah, 7/10 faster last lap. And you don't need to see the numbers anymore for this. He has a bit of a wiggle on power, and that is those quick reactions you need to see. He's just going to try and set up a move where he can make one happen, and into turn 1 or into the bus stop do seem like the best opportunities at the minute.
But it looks like Mr. Cloet having a bit of trouble keeping the front end gripped up through Farnier, which is typical of these machines. But have a look at that, a slight mistake from Johnny Bell there. Delayed getting on the throttle out of Stavelot, and this means that Cloet has got the mother of all slipstreams coming up to Blanchimont. Are we going to see some side-by-side action? Cloet with the momentum. Looks like he might just back out because Johnny Bell stays on the racing line. So this is going to be an outbraking maneuver at the bus stop chicane. Is Matthew Cloet brave enough? He is, and it looks like he's managed to take it. Great move by Matthew Cloet. That is how you outbrake in a Formula One car.
Textbook stuff into one of the bigger braking zones on the circuit. Second biggest, I'd say, after the end of the Kemmel Straight. Biggest movers in this race then, with Cloet there putting himself up +9. Danson obviously is +7. That's a mistake for Cameron Dance. In fact, he spun it completely around, and this could cost him a spot. No, that wasn't the position, the car coming up behind him. That was Jake Fox. This is what's happened, though.
Yeah, so something's happened to Dean Moll as well. We're hearing we're going to get a replay of that. But Dance coming through the downhill corner just looked like a little bit squirrely on power, but he got right on the brakes and recovered it. What of Dean Moll, on the other hand? Oh no, it looks like there might be a big issue for him there. Some hardware dramas, some technical issues. Either way, he's pulled himself back to the pits, and I get the feeling that might be the last we see of poor Dean in this race.
Back to that point, the biggest movers in this race. Obviously, we highlighted Danson being up +7, +8 as well for Taylor, +10 for Schleppers. Dornak is +13, Skurlock is +4, Sheridan +5, Cloet +9, +10 for Johnny Bell, who's just in front of... Yeah, he's gotten back in front of him. I had to pause for a second there. I was wondering how that happened. And then John King's +5 and Jonathan Ben's +6 as well.
All right.
And this is all because 5 of our drivers from the top 10 have had to pit or are retirements. That's how we've got these drivers who didn't make the top 10 but are more consistent with so many positions gained because of how maybe highly strung the driving style has been from our top 10.
Well, would you say Cameron Dance is high strung?
I think after that slight half spin, Dance will be a bit high strung, and Daniel Stevens might be as well, because John King here, who we're right on board with, is hot in pursuit. John starting in 20th place up to 15th, and he's got Johnny Bell there. Oh no, sorry, Seth DeMerchant behind him. So it's a 3-car battle here. DeMerchant with the slipstream, and wow. It just shows you how much the slipstream is worth in these cars. DeMerchant, pushed a bit hard there coming into Lecombe, but just holds on to it. I tell you what, this has given a little bit of an advantage to Daniel Stevens, because now that they're in at the fast corner, middle sector of the lap, these guys probably won't be able to get an advantage, but Stevens with a little bit of wheel spin coming out of the right-hander. He might be in trouble here from Seth, who is really on a good turn of pace right now.
By the way, Clovert and Bell swapped around again for that P12 battle at the end of the Camel Straight, where we were watching this battle. And I think Clert might have shown the measure of him on this lap now. But this is going to be pretty tight up into Blanchimont between these three. Stevens holding them up just a bit. I think King's got pace, but he lost out to DeMerchant because he was getting boarded up behind this MFR machine. So
Have a look at DeMerchant's speed.
Yeah. It's smart, though, not to go around the outside of Blanchimont. Just hold off. They take the inside for this chicane, unless the car in front defends. That makes it a little bit harder, but Stevens goes a bit too deep. And around the outside, gonna need to get the power down. Very tight, there's no room, just a car's width given. And DeMerchant squeezes through the gap and takes away the spot, as long as he pulls it up into turn 1. But I'll tell you what, actually, it won't be done, because the slipstream is going to come right back for Daniel Stevens.
That it is. Coming up through Radion Rouge, then Stevens right on the rear diffuser of Seth DeMerchant, and this is going to be a clear move, I think, coming into Lecombe corner. Or is it? Not quite the drive that I was expecting from Stevens. I don't know if he's running a higher downforce package than these guys, but not able to get the straight line speed advantage coming down the straight.
His car topped out about the same pace as DeMerchant's 310.
I mean, remember that his car has been beaten around a little bit. You can't see a lot of damage on it, but we know there's got to be something. You can't take 2-3 hits on a Formula 1 car and expect nothing.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that, but here's an incident for Alexander Sheridan coming up towards Bruxelles. And looks like this is something that we've seen a couple of times. Just gets on the throttle, and that is a big smash into the wall. Fortunately, other cars avoiding him because Sheridan escapes right out. But something that we found pretty common at that Rivage corner, coming up to the exit. The drivers get on the throttle. They're very confident there in third gear that they'll get the acceleration out. But the lack of downforce at those speeds just seems to... Jake Fox. Yeah.
I saw that blue car parked up, and I thought that was a strange place.
Well, down at the bottom of the field there, a lap down was Jake, and I think this might be another case of getting on the throttle a little bit too hard there. The wheels spin up, and away they go.
Dean Moll's tale of terrors continues. Another, I believe, probably a hardware failure. And he is now, I think, officially retired from this race, out of the session, 2 laps down. So Dean Moll, I think, probably done at this point. Daryl Hockey as well has left. Jake Fox, for the moment, is continuing to soldier on, I think.
We take a look, meanwhile, at Jonathan Ben, who has moved into the new man cave, and have a look at all of that memorabilia behind him. Definitely love that as a sim room. Running in 16th at the moment is Jonathan, after starting at dead last, and showing once again that staying out of trouble, keeping your pace consistent, keeping it on the track is what helps you out in this series, and seems to be having a bit of a fun time out there. He's all alone on track, no one behind him, no one in front, so just hot lapping at the moment.
Well, Reese, we know Jonathan Ben very recently won a race purely based on his consistency. He wasn't the fastest car, but he was consistent, and as everything fell to pieces in front of him, he was just able to come through and clean it up.
Yeah, that was in Hard and Fast last Wednesday night at the Irwindale Figure 8. So looking forward to seeing what Jonathan Ben can do in a slightly more serious race format. Only slightly more serious, our Director J asserts, but looking at car number 420, Wayne Taylor blazes his way up the hill. Lucas Schleppers is going to come up on him very, very soon here. Quite a bit of extra pace down the straight, and just, I'd say, just over a tenth faster on the last lap than MFR's Wayne Taylor. So look out for Lucas Schleppers. He's had a bit of an eventful one here so far. Started in 18th, now into the top 8. He's advancing forward.
That was intentional, right?
It absolutely was.
Yeah. Gotta check.
And I will say nothing more.
Right after making a comment about being slightly more serious.
Yeah.
We're on lap 14 of 44, by the way. So, not up to halfway yet. The lead for Owen is out to 2.6 seconds now over Newton. 15 to Dance, 21 to Dance, and 30 to Bowen. That's your top 5. Owen naturally just did the fastest lap of the race, immediately eclipsed by Scott Newton. So they're still matching each other for lap times. I think it's just a matter of consistency and making little errors here and there between the two of them at the moment, which is sorting out that gap. Track as well has been cast under a bit of shade until you get to this particular part of the circuit, and there's still quite a bit of sun beaming down, casting that UV light on the track, which makes it a little bit less comfortable to drive on, a bit more slippery.
And that's what I've been seeing, I think, from a lot of these guys is people like Chris Owen and Scott Newton up the front are getting faster as they get further through the stint because they're burning off the fuel, but they're a little more squirrely putting the power down. The car looks tougher to drive. So it's interesting, from the start of the stint to later in the stint, the car gets faster but harder to drive.
Yeah, a little bit more of a knife edge, because the fuel tank of a Formula One car is right behind the driver as Schleppers trying again on Wayne Taylor. The fuel tank being pretty much in the middle of the car and slightly biased towards the rear means that as the fuel burns off, the rear end gets a little bit lighter. It does result in a car that turns a little bit better, but as you said, David, as the tyres come down, it does get a bit more squirrely on the exit. Lucas Schleppers having a bit of a hard time here behind Wayne Taylor, dealing with the aero wash. Coming through Buon, you see that the drivers have to brush the brakes just slightly through this corner. It's barely a lift at all in modern day Formula One cars, but you do have to work a little bit more in these 2009 machines.
Probably one of the trickier cars to drive in the service, would you say, Reese?
I'd say so. It's one of those machines that, as we've gone over before, it has less downforce than what you'd think a typical Formula One car would have, and of course no traction control or ABS or any of those fancy things. With the rate at which both of these cars go around, it looks like we're going to take our first three takers rather, into the pits. Shane Bowen, Wayne Taylor, and Lucas Schleppers all coming in, and given that it is lap 16 for our leaders, we can tell that these guys are going for the 2-stop.
Mirko Dornak also comes to pit lane, and Johnny Bell as well, and that's pretty much bang on what we were expecting. I thought we were going to get some pit stops in the next lap or so. There we go.
Yeah,
Chris Owen, see if he wants to go for 2 of the 1-stop strategy, though.
Yeah, well, these two racing out front, they know that the only cars they're really racing at the moment are each other, so they definitely need to keep an eye on what the other is doing. If Owen goes for the 2-stop coming in at the end of this lap, I would expect Scott Newton to try and go for the 1-stop to attempt to... Oh my goodness, that was a big mistake from Chris Owen there into the corner. Looks like both of them missing the pits, so I think that says it all, really. It's going to be a one-stop strategy from our two race leaders, but Chris Owen there, David, almost losing it in the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, and superhuman reflexes to save it. While he had this little moment, Scott Newton set his, the fastest lap of the race. So that's really brought them together, first and second, as third place Cam Dance goes on to pit lane. So he's going for that two-stop strategy. But here you see the bit of elevation change at the apex there. Really what unsettles the car while he's turning, while he's trying to put some throttle in for Chris Owen. And it's a Jackie Chan film, how fast those hands move.
Yeah, even in slow motion, it looks like crazy reflexes, and another external view of it. Just a little bit of a wiggle that looks like from the outside. Of course, the driver almost completely enclosed in the cockpit of these Formula One cars. But Chris Owen just getting away with it. Cameron Dance comes back out of the pits in P5. So he's doing pretty well so far on what we presume is the two-stop. Matthew Clote coming in. Another two-stop strategy expected from him.
The two-stop is looking very, very popular, I think. Surprisingly so. I was thinking maybe we were going to see, 10 cars try it, but we're seeing it's definitely the presumptive best or maybe safest strategy.
Yeah, looking like it as we see an MFR car come in. Jonathan Ben, something just happened to him as we see more cars come on into the pit lane. So Ben is followed in by Harold Stadler, Chris Owen, and Scott Newton, our two race leaders. So this is a good reaction here from our two race leaders. In comes Ben into the pits.
Owen got bottled up on the pit entry there, and I think it's let Scott Newton get very close indeed. He could do a short fuel and grab the lead.
Yeah, potentially could. We'll keep an eye then on our two race leaders, see what they do.
Now, the pit exit's only single file. You can't go side by side. Chris Owen just gets out ahead of Harold Stadler. And Scott Newton's got a car between them. This is not what he wanted. He'll get by Stadler immediately. Can he stay within the slipstream range of Chris Owen? Don't think he's close enough to get there at the end of this lap at the Camel Straight. But I reckon he's in that region now.
Yeah, that he is, but Harold Stadler with the slipstream and backs off. Scott Newton remaining over to driver's right, back onto the racing line, coming into Lacombe. Drivers have fresh tyres and a topped-up fuel tank. So now Chris Owen's goal is going to be to nail these next couple of laps. What's happened to John King here? No, we're taking a look at what happened to Jonathan Ben.
That was a late call.
Yeah, it was a late call from him, but we're about to see why, because I went back and had a look, and he had a little bit of a lock-up moment coming into the bus stop chicane. So through he comes through Blanchimont. And watch when he gets to the braking zone, very late in the braking, the rear end just breaks free and he has to really recover it. So that almost took out the kinetic car just ahead of him, but Jonathan Ben very quickly deciding to jump into the pit lane.
Back to live pictures. The gap between Owen and Newton has come down. This is Wayne Taylor. It's 0.7 of a second. This is Wayne Taylor, MF Racing Pro, currently right in behind the kinetic car. It looks like it is. It's John King.
And this is where the risk comes from taking the two-stop strategy, because King hasn't pitted yet. Now Wayne Taylor is losing some of the good effect of those new tyres and losing some time stuck up behind. Two-stop strategy is a great strategy, but only if you don't get held up when the first stop drops you back in traffic.
The good news, this isn't exactly a hard track to pass. Not in these cars, anyway. Down at the end of the exit of Blanchimont and down at the end of the Camel Straight, you pretty much just have to be close to the car in front, and with the fresh tyre advantage, you should be able to get there through the back part of the circuit. Can hold you up a bit, but you also gain a bit thanks to the slipstream every time you make those moves. So, it's definitely, I think, more viable here than, say, I don't know, Belle Isle.
Yeah, definitely. Tracks that are enclosed, difficult to pass on. You probably want to go for the long call strategy yourself. Chris Owen in second on track with Matt Danson, the leader, has not taken his stop yet. You see the live gap there between the two effective race leaders, and Scott Newton absolutely on the warpath here. He's being very aggressive now in this middle stint. I'm wondering if... the possibilities are going through my head, and I'm just ticking them off thinking, no, he couldn't possibly be doing it. But it looks like it's just great pace. Great pace from Scott Newton. I was thinking maybe he's a little bit lighter on fuel, but then that would have resulted in a quicker pit stop time for him. So
I don't know how much they started with, though.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
oh no,
point,
there's no
we don't know how much they started with. But yeah.
Lucas Schleppers has fallen afoul, but why? This is, you know what? We know what this is going to be, don't we?
Yeah, this is going to be the same kind of incident we've seen a few more times, and whoop, there we go. Into the wall.
There's two cars coming!
Oh, that was
side by side.
Oh, yep, here we go. Scott Newton for the effective race lead round the outside at Lacombe on Chris Owen, and just gets it done.
He's
but
still
Owen's
there.
Gonna back up the inside. No, loses the momentum on the inside line. Newton, with the extra speed, the extra downforce, by going just a few kilometers an hour faster, has taken the effective race lead. Very decisive.
That was a great little exchange, very respectful. And Chris Owen, fair play to him. He didn't roll over. He tried to keep the car there, but he recognized as soon as he threw it in to that right-hander, the line he was taking on the speed he had, they weren't going to gel, and he was going to end up in the side of Newton, so he had to back out of it. Right here. Throws it in, but you can see because Newton's on the outside, he can't let the steering unwind, but he's managed to stay pretty close throughout the rest of the lap. And as you run back up the hill, yeah, this is a hill, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It doesn't seem like it's uphill from inside the driver's seat, but it is definitely a long way up. And both of them making a mistake there in the braking zone. Newton running wide and a bit of a squirrely exit. That's going to allow side-by-side running down the start-finish straight. And this is potential for an over-under maneuver from Chris Owen. The slipstream is going to come into play here down on the Kemmel Straight. Newton with a slightly compromised exit now, and Owen won't be able to get on by until after they come over the hill.
I think this is what he wanted. He did not want to be ahead coming out of turn one. Wanted the run up the hill through the Camel Straight to the outside. Chris Owen takes the race lead effectively straight back. Matt Danson, of course, still yet to pit, and completely unsurprising to me to see Danson stretching the field. I can say that as sliver of a doubt. Danson's going for the one stop here.
Yeah, for
one
sure.
more lap he has to do to get to half distance for that stop as well.
He's notorious for fuel saving. Normally on ovals, but it translates to road. He is very kind to his fuel. He 9 times out of 10 will always go for the overcut strategy. And lo and behold, Danson, the only driver to do the one stop, it would seem.
Yeah, well, we've still got 3 other drivers that have yet to pit. Michael Skurlock, Daniel Stevens, and John King, who are briefly getting into a battle. Will Leslie as well, running in position 4, has yet to come into the pits. So potential to see a one-stop strategy from those guys. Matt Danson, meanwhile, up in front. He's made a little bit of a mistake there coming into the bus stop chicane, but just keeping it together. In terms of pace, 49.4 on that lap. Scott Newton and Chris Owen not able to match him because they're battling.
Yeah, well, I was going to say his tyres will be screaming, but this battle is holding these guys up. You know, their fastest laps were at the end of that first stint, 148.4 for Newton, 148.9 for Owen. So about a second away from their second and a bit from their fastest of the race, but you'd still expect them to be going a little bit quicker than this. That's Jonathan Bain making another trip to pit road. I would say this is probably unscheduled. Up at the front, he's looking and looking, but not quite getting close enough. Scott Newton to make it 3 laps in a row for a lead change at Camel Straight. Why is Ben on pit road? The motor simulation replay probably going to tell us why. Was it another mistake into the chicane?
Well, we'll see. Whatever it is, Jay is telling us that he is not happy, and oh, yeah, there we go. It's just in those heavy braking zones, the car can snap quite easily, and Ben obviously very unhappy with the wayward behavior of his car.
The question is, why did he come in for that spin? But another thing that we're seeing at home in the racetrack, which I often make a point about it being a factor that isn't really a factor unless it's really strong, which is the wind. It's really strong. It's a factor. And it's having an effect on these guys into certain corners. So the wind right now is gusting at 21 kilometers southwest. So that's a solid tailwind into some of these corners and a solid headwind into others, which affects where you brake and it affects your mid-corner speed as well.
Absolutely does. It'll translate into a bit of a tailwind into the bus stop chicane and into La Source as well. But through corners like Le Combe and through Pouon, you would get a bit of extra downforce thanks to that wind direction. But it is very gusty indeed, and that might have something to do with Jonathan Bain's troubles there in the bus stop chicane. Of course, Formula One cars very sensitive to the tiniest of condition changes. And here we go. Scott Newton in the slipstream once again on Chris Owen. Pulls out to the outside. Tries around the outside coming into Le Combe, but once again has to back out. Gets a great exit though from the corner, but not worth it. Throwing one up the inside coming into Rivage.
I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think how Matt Danson filters out of all this. So we're going with definitely Owen and Newton off to pit again?
Yeah, I reckon so.
I think Danson's in the box seat to win.
Potentially.
He's 8 seconds ahead now. And he's going to pit and come out behind these guys, yes. But based off the pace he's doing now, and yes, he's got less fuel in the car, because these guys are slightly holding each other up, he's not losing as much as he should be. Due to the tyres being slightly older, but still holding up pretty well. I reckon that Danson might have this one figured out pretty easily. Owen and Newton, I reckon, need to find a little bit more pace to overcome him. What on earth is that?
Hello, that's 3 cars coming into one corner. It's an MFR machine. That's Daniel Stevens having to give up a position there. And that's for the top 10 as well. Mirko Dortonac. Goodness me. For the former Illusion Motorsport team, no idea where any of that has come from, but John King has been the major beneficiary out of all of that, gapping both Dortonac and Stevens, and it looks like it is bringing an Avatar car into it as well. So here's what happened. It was a triple slipstream down the Kemmel Straight. Dortonac, King, and Stevens there, with Dortonac trying on King, but unfortunately having to slow up, but using his downforce around the outside of the left-hander, just sweeps ahead of Stevens, who then tries the move once again, coming into Rivage, pushing very hard, and I think Dortonac wisely backing out of that one, and once again, very close to the most popular spin to have.
As we watch these guys, Stevens and Dortonac, let's see if there's a change of position here. Around the outside on the brakes, that's not going to work out. But he keeps the car there, and in comes Daniel Stevens to pit road. Shane Bowen just behind as well. So we are past halfway. Danson's still on track. I don't think he's going for the 50-50. I think he's going to try and go as long as he can. And I wonder if he ends up stretching it to a point where we see him coming in for his only stop around the same time we see Owen, Newton, and everyone else coming in for their second and final stop. And if he's still ahead at that time, then how do they catch him?
Good question. Once again, in terms of the fuel tank, the maximum you can put in the car is 120 kilograms, and it's about 160 kilograms to get the full race distance. So if Danson does a single pit stop, puts in something around 40 kilograms, it's going to be a very good stop. But he's going to get held up here through Eau Rouge by Daniel Stevens and John King. They just let him through. Very dicey indeed.
Hadn't considered that as well, Reese. He's got to put a lot of fuel in, doesn't he?
Well, yeah.
Comparatively?
Comparatively. He's, if he's put in a full fuel tank at the start of the race, as Leslie comes in from 5th, if he's put in a full tank of 120 kilos at the start and has to stop for 40 kilos, he'll be able to get a tyre change done in that time. And that's going to be a pretty comparable pit stop. Still going to be faster than coming through the pits twice, I would believe.
My brain's starting to melt. The
Mine
gap
too.
is coming down now that Owen and Newton have spread apart. David, your take?
My take is we've just seen Will Leslie's stop, one of our one-stopping drivers, and the pit stop was 3 or 4 seconds longer for his fuel.
There was a spin in the background, by the way, as you were talking. I don't think it was Jonathan Ben.
Yeah, he had a slight problem there at the bus stop. It was Dwayne Burns that spun on the exit of the corner. Puts the power down and the camber of the road, just making those rear wheels spin up. Dwayne Burns, one of the cars a lap down. And there we go. Danson just past the halfway point. This is an ensured one-stop strategy. So that means that Chris Owen and Scott Newton are going to come on by right now down the straight. They've got some traffic to deal with as well. Johnny Bell up in front of him. And then the battling pair of Stevens and King.
This will actually help Owen. Johnny Bell will at least, because he'll pass him down Camel. These guys, though, Daniel Stevens and John King, going to get caught in a very awkward spot. Stevens is close enough to make the move to the outside. Down Camel straight. That is move done over John King. He sweeps around the outside and throws it straight off the racetrack. Skates back on to the paved stuff, and the rear end is all sorts of sideways in front of King. And now comes Chris Owen. Looking to the inside, running straight out of room. Now he's being held up.
Contact! There we go. John King has been tapped around there by Daniel Stevens. Both of them have to get going. And our race leaders then go on by them with minimal incident. But Daniel Stevens is going to be very unhappy with that. You can already see he's got a bit of right hand down. And John King barely able to keep the car straight. So that's a huge shame between King and Stevens. It looks like John King might have to make a tour back to the pits potentially for a fast repair. Here's the replay of it. So both of them going hell for leather up the hill. Stevens got a bit held up coming up the hill. King let him go, but Stevens was just way too hard into Lacombe. Had to recover. King tries to go round the outside, and they continue running side by side as Chris Owen comes into the picture. And Stevens, I think, getting a little bit flustered there on the inside. King pulls it back in, but two cars going into one piece of racetrack just did not work.
And through all that, Chris Owen was, I think, understandably a bit frustrated.
Yeah, he would have lost some valuable time to Scott Newton on that lap, but he's wasted no time in extending the gap again. Matt Danson, meanwhile, has come back out in position 4, and he's not that far behind Cameron Dance, all things considered. So we just heard that Danson's pit stop was only 2 seconds longer than Cameron Dance's. So might we be seeing, as DeMerchant comes in, might we be seeing a late splash and dash from Matt Danson?
I think not. The thing is, in the period of these cars, you kind of knew how much fuel approximately people were starting the race with because it was carried over from qualifying. Whereas in this situation, absolutely no clue from our perspective how much fuel people started this race with. They could have had 120, they could have had 100, they could have had 40 kilos. So we just don't know.
Yeah, so we're all finding out along with you viewers what the picture of this race is building up to. But Owen and Newton back in the lead, back where they're comfortable. And we should expect them to come back in perhaps around lap 30 to lap 32 if the strategy is being split equally into 3 stints. So no huge battles at the moment. Looks like the race has well and truly calmed down here, so I reckon probably a good opportunity to take an onboard tour of Spa-Francorchamps, perhaps from the perspective of second place Scott Newton, as he doggedly pursues Christopher Owen. This is the battle for the lead. From this point onwards, we're going to leave you to hear the sound of a Formula One car around Spa-Francorchamps. Listen for the throttle application through Pouhon. We're going to come back early. Going to come back early because there's been an incident somewhere out on the circuit for one of the kinetic machines. Modem simulation replay then. Will Leslie, who's been fighting hard in the top 5, top 6, and I think I can already predict what we're going to see here. No, Jay says no. Oh yeah, he does make it out of the corner. But not much further. A little bit too much curb there. And it looks like he's lost a spot out of that to Shane Bowen, but fortunately has not lost his front wing. So he can continue. Meanwhile, seen a change for position between Daniel Stevens and Johnny Bell for position 13. Bell's just made his way past Stevens at the end of the Kemmel Straight.
I want to go back to that onboard lap. I was enjoying making my meow sounds. Well, no one else
could hear.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were enjoying it, but I don't know about everyone else up here in the comms box. I know Jay wasn't enjoying it, but Daniel
Stevens... my sole purpose off air and on air is to annoy Jay to the fullest extent. So, I mean, mission accomplished, right?
Yeah, of course. You're doing a great job in that respect, Ryan. But Stevens and Bell not letting each other go. Just seeing a car come into the pits there behind Thomas O'Leary in 11th. Who was that? That was Alexander Sheridan coming back into pit lane. And oh no, Daniel Stevens, another issue. And that was just outside of Blanchimont. I wonder if he and Bell came together. A very frustrated Daniel Stevens. Look at him shaking his head. He looks done like a dinner at the moment.
He's having a good race, isn't he? He has had the rough end of the stick today. So, right behind Johnny Bell, that, my friend, is called understeer. And he actually got a bit of the fence.
Well, fortunately, it looks like it wasn't damaged to the point where he had to bring it into the pits. The car might be a little bit wayward in its behavior. Can Stevens make his way past Harold Stadler there? No, that's Cameron Dance there up in front of him who's lapped him. My apologies. Once again, getting teammates confused. Harold Stadler is still a lap down on the rest of the field. But it looks like he may be fighting for position with Daniel Stevens pretty soon if Stevens makes another mistake. Cameron Dance getting the lean on
from Matt Danson after his stop, and from doing very similar speed to Owen and Newton, he's now a second a lap slower from all of that fuel on board. So I do think Owen and Newton now have enough time to make their final stop and get out in front of him.
And we'll have to... There's some thoughts going around that he may just jump Cam Dance, though, and potentially grab a podium spot. Matt Danson, pretty much the only driver up at the top of the field to really go for that one-stop strategy and make it work. You saw the live gap there, Cameron Dance back to Matt Danson. So Dance is going to have to pit once more with 9.6 seconds, and tell you what, a trip through the pit lane at Spa-Francorchamps takes a lot more than 9.6 seconds, Ryan.
Takes about 30 seconds, isn't it? 35?
25, then plus whatever your stationary time is, be it 6 seconds, be it 10 seconds.
It's going to be pretty tough between Owen and Danson, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it will. But Danson at the moment, all he can do is avoid the stationary car of Daniel Stevens and keep the consistency up. So Daniel Stevens, he is just really having trouble, isn't he?
It's a mental thing now at this stage. You've got all these mistakes in your head and you start thinking about them and overthinking. Someone else has just spun in the back of the shot exiting the final corner. And it's leading to more and more mistakes. This is Mirko Dornak, and that's the first mistake we've seen from him today. It is going to cost him a spot, I think, to his former teammate, Michael Skurlock. Replay.
All right, let's see what happened then. Into the bus stop. Looked like through Blanchimont it was nice and stable, but we're going to get the live feed up for a second because Cam Dance has got his calculator out on the Kemmel Straight as we see that it was a self-spin from Mirko Dornak. Had to make a three-point turn to get it going again, but Cameron Dance is starting to think, uh-oh, I'm in a bit of trouble here for a podium spot from Danson. What can I do to preserve this third place?
Drive quicker.
Oh, yeah, of course. Why didn't I think of that, Ryan?
Drive quicker,
absolute genius.
but also save more fuel. The racing driver's dream to do those two things at the same time.
Yes, but it's a very fleeting dream if and when it happens. So back onto the Kemmel Straight for Cam. Will he get the calculator out again? No, he gives the thumbs up. I think he just gave the thumbs up to the left car, letting him by. What's the point? What's the point? He can't see you.
He's really getting into the corners, giving the hand signals to people.
Oh, dear. Jay is surprised he didn't give a dab as he went past. Oh, my goodness. Matthew Kloder's in the pits. Here's what happened to him. Some instability and a big hit into the wall. Just slammed right into it. So at the direction change coming out of Lecombe, the car just over-rotated and little overcorrection. And it looks like lap 32. This is around the area in which I called the second pit stop to be made. What will Chris Owen do? He will come into the pits. What will Scott Newton do? He will stay out. Okay, so trying a little overcut here potentially, or he might have just missed the boat. And calculator out again. Oh, hands off the wheel, Cam. Goodness me.
Talking himself through it as well.
So here we go. Cameron could be preparing for a stop here, and he is. Righto. So Chris Owen getting ready for the fuel to be put back in, and he is away.
He gets out and mimes changing the wheel and putting the fuel in as well.
Yeah, maybe.
That's everything else. That's everything else in that cockpit.
Yeah. Just jump out, get the wheel gun. Scott Newton has an extra lap here to think about what he needs to do coming into the pits. That extra lap on those not so fresh tyres. Have a look at the gap that Danson has got there over Cam Dance. 16 seconds between them. So
that means he's still behind Owen though, by a long way.
Oh yeah, of course. I think that a win might be out of the question here for Matt Danson, but that one-stop strategy has put him right in contention for a podium position, and I think Cameron Dance was just caught sleeping.
Was this stop too slow? What was the stationary time? He's actually quicker than Owen. Stationary time, so calculator obviously works. Well, I say that now, but he might not make it to the end.
Ooh, an extra lap.
This
an
is
extra lap
interesting
for Newton.
So you're going to try and run the tank dry. I mean, that theory that the less fuel you have to light the car, the quicker the car. That the tyres hold up enough to allow you to find that extra pace later on.
Newton definitely had the slightly longer stop last time around.
Yeah, so what we can gather from that is he's going for a slightly longer middle stint, hopefully with some slightly less stationary time in the pit lane. Owen in P2 now on track, dealing with a bit of lap traffic in the form of Mirko Dortenac, lets him go promptly into La Source. So now Chris Owen with a nice gap to the next car up ahead, which is Jonathan Ben. Harold Stadler comes in for what we'd expect to be his final stop with 11 laps to go for him. Meanwhile, Will Leslie and Seth DeMerchant, this has turned into a battle for the top 5 here. DeMerchant has been, I think, one of the most determined racers out there today. Suffered those issues early on, started outside the top 10, but now potential to get Will Leslie here for a top 5. He's looked very quick in that machine. Oh, a little bit too quick there into the bus stop chicane. Slight wayward rear end action, but keeps it together, only just.
Backing it towards the Apex touring car spec.
That's it. That's how you do it in touring cars, at least. Formula One cars reacting slightly differently to that kind of driving style. Scott Newton there, race leader, coming into the pits, and our director is saying that his timing says Newton may come out in front of Chris Owen here. And you see Owen yet to come into Blanchimont as Newton's going to come into his box now. This is going to be close here between the leaders.
So here's Chris Owen through the chicane. There's Scott Newton, just behind the Porsche pace car. Down the main straight,
Very
second car on the straight is Owen. He's going to have the momentum coming off turn 1, but Newton's going to come out ahead. Now watch the slipstream effect. Does Owen have enough of a momentum? He doesn't. And there's even a car between them. So Scott Newton has emerged with the race lead, but he's got to get these tyres up to temperature.
Yeah, he does, and he doesn't have the benefit of a draft, at least until now, because in front of him goes Jonathan Ben, and you see Newton immediately into the draft, and Ben goes, okay, you can go, mate. So now it's going to be an out-and-out battle between these two. Owen's tyres are up to temperature, but Newton's will be a couple laps fresher. He should be able to fight a little harder until the end. So under a second then between these two drivers. And once Newton crosses the line next. We'll monitor the next lap and see what kind of time these two drivers can do. Newton pushing incredibly hard into the Stavolo corner, nearly losing the rear end, but he knows that he needs to get the gap out to over a second, and he needs to make his way through whatever lap traffic is yet to come as efficiently as possible, but doesn't have to worry about that for the time being. Matt Cloet is the next car up ahead of these guys in position 18 and just exiting the bus stop now as these two enter.
Is he close enough on this lap?
The end.
Looks like he might just be close enough here, these two. 6/10 coming down the Kemmel straight then. It's all about the draft, and you're going to see Chris Owen with a bit of extra speed now. 5/10 is the gap between the two of them. So an extra couple tenths down the Kemmel straight for Chris Owen. Just needs to manage the front end, make sure he doesn't overheat those front tires through the middle sector.
Only 8 laps left to go then in this Belgian Grand Prix, the 10th round of the International Division for the Majors Series, and it's going to come right down to the end between these two race leaders. 9.7 second gap back to Matt Danson, who sits in third, 23 seconds away to Cameron Danson, then it's over a minute to everyone else. 9 cars on the lead lap, 10th on back is a lap down, and a couple of retirements from this race at this stage.
Yeah, so 4 drivers out of this race. Jack Stiles, Jake Fox, Dean Mole, and Daryl Hockey all have not made it to the finish so far. We do have the majority of our cars still running. Newton and Owen throwing it into the bus stop. Owen making a slight line error, losing out a bit on the exit, but it's all about the run from La Source down to Lacombe through here. And they're starting to come up to Matthew Cloet now, which means Scott Newton himself is going to get a bit of draft to help him. Here we go. Matthew Cloet now falling into the clutches of Scott Newton. And Cloet here is going to have a bit of an issue. He might have to go wide at Pouon, and he does. Through goes Newton. Chris Owen with a little bit of aero instability through the same corner. Cloet's going to have to brake early and let him go. Hasn't really affected the gap all that much between the two leaders. It's back out to 7/10. So Owen going to have to work a little bit harder over the next couple laps if he wants to take this victory. Remember, Scott Newton nabbing pole position after Owen was unable to make it back to the pits after a crash.
Amazing how equal these two drivers, Newton and Owen, have been all race long for a full Grand Prix distance. Owen with a bit of a wiggle coming out of the bus stop there, though, gives Newton kind of the most breathing room he's had since their most recent pit stop.
We've got a stat here for Thomas O'Leary. Have a look at that. 32 laps ago. Thomas O'Leary pitted on lap 6. So you talk about the one stop, David. That is well and truly the one stop taken to its logical conclusion. O'Leary's just gone super long for the final stint.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme, but he is in 8th place. So, I mean, I think he's probably had his hand forced in that way onto a strategy he wasn't quite thinking of. But that is motor racing. You need to be able to think on your feet and adjust. Who is it? Sun Tzu that the best laid plans don't survive first contact with the enemy, or is that more a World War II thing? I don't know, but it's the same in motor racing.
Yeah, certainly is the art of war, the art of battle, and it's something that Chris Owen and Scott Newton might be preparing for pretty soon. Having said that, you have a look at the gap now. It looks like Chris Owen has ended up doubling the gap there. He made a mistake, I think, on the previous lap. Definitely not in touch with Newton now.
Oh, O'Leary's on the pit lane now.
Ah, there we go.
We've got him cursed it.
So Thomas O'Leary, turns out, is after all going for the two-stop strategy. He's just gone for an incredibly long middle stint, and the start and end stints super short. So Mirko Dortinac could potentially break on into 9th position if Thomas O'Leary doesn't get out of the pits quick sharp, which he does. A very quick stop for O'Leary, and a new fastest lap for Scott Newton. As you can see up in the top right, he's continuing to bring that fastest lap time down, certainly showing that when it comes to putting out great pace consistently, seems like Newton is the one to beat in these F1 cars.
Him and Owen, they both have so much experience in these cars, that's why. And they are both absolutely blitzing the field. And I don't think anyone is really surprised by it, because you'll see them quite often, I suppose, in the iRacing GP series on a Sunday morning, or on SimSpeed TV as well, won't you? Doing quite well. So they have plenty of practice in these cars, plenty of practice in these at this track as well, as we all do, to be honest. Interestingly, though, Cameron Dance is back on the calculator again.
Yeah, he's still working out the foibles of the fuel strategy. Maybe he's underfueled the car in an attempt to try and stay ahead of Matt Danson, but a little bit of fuel saving towards the end certainly wouldn't hurt him, because the next car back from Cam is Seth DeMerchant, who's just made his way out of Radion now. And you see Cam is halfway around the lap, so he's got an awful lot of time to play with. Across the line then, Scott Newton to start lap 40. We have 5 laps to go in the Belgian Grand Prix. A little bit of traffic in front of them. Dwayne Burns down in 17th place. They'll be coming up to him around the middle of the lap as well, but looks like Chris Owen's gap is slowly but surely chipping away once again. 1.5 seconds now, the gap. Remember, at their closest, they were 5/10 apart. I get the feeling, Ryan, that Chris Owen's tyres might be past their best, and he's just conserving to the end.
Yeah. Well, we got 4 laps to go next time we cross the line. So, I mean, he's still there or thereabouts, 1.4 seconds. If Newton makes any sort of mistake, Owen's going to be right in striking range again, isn't he? But right now, he's not, and he doesn't look threatening. So Newton can afford to just take a little of the pressure off his shoulders, but he can't sit back. Owen's definitely keeping him very much at arm's reach as best he can.
So it's just a waiting game now towards the end. Seems like every single battle on track now is spread out. Very hard to follow closely in these cars through the fastest corners on the track. Newton now making his way past Burns into the bus stop. Oh, that looked like quite the lock-up from Chris Owen. You can definitely tell that those tyres are starting to cry out for a little bit of reprieve, but the gap has come down slightly. 8 tenths at the line between these two thanks to that traffic.
Did he get the momentum out of turn 1? Oh, he has. Look at the gap, half a second. Oh, how did that happen? It opened back up for a minute then.
Yeah, right.
Close enough this time. But he's there, so I'm talking about anything, that little mistake, that lap traffic, it can all play a part. I don't think there's any more traffic to play a part in this one though. Skurlock's up the road, but he's 8th. He's not that far off the pace.
Yeah, just those 8 cars on the lead lap, such as the pace that Newton and Owen have laid down.
Yeah, they've certainly been the drivers to beat in this Belgian Grand Prix. Scott Newton still holds the fastest lap on a 1:48.3, but they haven't gone anywhere near that in the laps since. It'd be nice to just go full on, flat out, push the tyres as hard as you can right to the end, but these tyres don't last that long when being driven so hard for such an extended period of time. So a little bit of backing off is necessary, a little bit more smoothness with the application of the steering. So end of lap 41 then. It's going to be 3 to go at the line for Newton. Makes a slight mistake coming into the bus stop and out of it as well. Chris Owen, with a slight wiggle on the exit, makes his own error. And the gap at the line now 0.753 once they cross the line. So now Chris Owen is definitely in range. He gets a good exit out of La Source, and Scott Newton, all he can do is drive the line prescribed to him. Up comes Owen, and he's got a great run there. Huge overspeed. Newton preemptively goes defensive now. Is he going to open the gap back up on the inside? Moves more towards the middle of the circuit. Forces Owen to go the long way around. Now they are together for the first time in a while, the two leaders. With only 3 laps to go in this race, Chris Owen could still take this if he plays his cards right.
Who would have thought 44 laps, and at the end of it, it was going to come down to a 2-horse race that was not yet decided. Quarter of a second in, it's as close as it's been almost all race long. As running out wide, using up all racetrack, Scott Newton, has he got any incident points left to use up? If either of them have, now's when you're going to use them. Keep them in the kitty litter, in the bank. And now, make sure when you come back, you've got nothing left in the tank. He stretches the margin just a fraction through the back of the circuit on the run to the Blanchimont, to the chicane. He should be comfortable, but this isn't where he's going to be worried. It's going to be back down at the Camel Straight, and looking at the gap now, well, Owen's going to be absolutely hounding him.
Down into the bus stop then, another slight mistake from Newton. Little bit of oversteer, under brakes, the rear's just locking. Once again, he gets a slightly better exit out of the bus stop chicane, but it's not going to be enough. The gap at the line now under 0.5 of a second. Chris Owen is right on the diffuser of Scott Newton, and this looks like it'll be a sure slipstream move on the penultimate lap down into Lacombe. Up the top of the hill, out of Radillon. Have a look at the speed that Chris Owen has. He picked up a huge amount of pace, and he is already right by Scott Newton, who immediately gets back into the draft, trying to get him back. He is going to come back on the inside. Scott Newton, can he outbrake Chris Owen? Both of them contact. A little bit of contact between the two of them, but they just keep it together. Tiny slide from Chris Owen, but for now at least, he's taken the lead. They've still got a lap to go, though. Newton is still really hardly fighting.
It's going to come down to the last lap. Can Owen open up enough of a margin to be comfortable? Michael Skurlock, he is going to play a factor, but what role is it that he's going to play? Will they catch him in a good spot, or will he give a tow maybe to Chris Owen down one of the straights? Newton's not letting him get away. It's going to be decided in the final 7 kilometers.
And this is something that keeps happening every time in the majors. It's our slow burner series as Skurlock gets right out of the way of our two race leaders. Great etiquette there, and have a look at Newton. Big draft down Blanchimont. He's going to try and have a look maybe up into the bus stop chicane. No, pulls out. So here we go.
Open.
Yeah, Owen did leave the door open.
Wanted him, I think.
Oh,
did he want to be ahead coming into this exit of turn 1? I wouldn't want to be.
Yeah,
with that mistake from Newton, it might have cost him. Yeah. I don't know if that's close enough.
Yeah, I don't think it's close enough either. The last chance Scott Newton is going to have is if he gets a good run out of Stavilo and Paul Frere curve. So, Jay's wondering if Newton is short on fuel. I mean, doesn't really look like it. Owen goes defensive up ahead. I think Newton does have enough to make it towards the finish. We'll see how hard he drives now, as it is white flag through the middle sector. He's going super hard there into Rivage, using as much of the downforce as he possibly can and bringing the gap back down to 0.5 of a second or so. No. That's a big mistake from Newton off onto the AstroTurf. And I think that little bit of overheating in the tyres as a result of that slide might have been what gives Chris Owen the victory here. But we've still got half a lap to go. Through Fanier and then into Stavilo. Chris Owen could come away with the victory here after being denied pole position due to a mistake in qualifying. Scott Newton is too far back for the draft to really work now on the run up to Blanchimont. So these top two, they've been going at it all race. And in the last couple of laps, the mistake from Scott Newton has gifted Chris Owen the gap that he needs. And he comes across the line through the bus stop chicane to take victory in the Belgian Grand Prix. He notches up a Majors Series victory. And Scott Newton, after leading a good portion of that one, will probably come away a little disappointed. But how about Matt Danson on the one-stop strategy? Took care of his tyres, took care of the fuel, and gets a podium for his troubles. Pips Cameron Dance there to that third place. Cameron Dance himself coming through the bus stop chicane now to take fourth.
What a fantastic finish of that one. And Chris Owen, a very deserving winner. Chris Newton was just as deserving, but well, there can only be one, can there? And he will fall just short at the end of 44 laps. No bad achievement, though. Matt Danson, what about that strategy to get up onto the podium from 11th on the grid? Did a lot of that work early.
He certainly did, and big shout out as well to Seth DeMerchant, who started in 12th and made it into the top 5 for his troubles as well. More big advances. Mirko Dortanak, having started outside the top 20, takes the final position in the top 10, I believe, as we've got more cars coming across the line. Bit of a shame for our championship contenders like Thomas O'Leary. He's going to be losing out quite a bit in the championship battle with Cameron Dance after finishing in 9th, with Dance finishing 4th. Shane Bowen, one of the last cars, or the last car on the lead lap, is going to be our final car to cross the line to take a fantastic 7th place after starting in 9th. But big losers out of that one. Harold Stadler started in 6th, but has to come home in 13th place. Going to lose out a lot to Daniel Stevens in the Legends Championship battle, and Dwayne Burns finishing down in 17th place after starting 7th. So let's take a look at our full race results then. Round 10 of the majors at Spa-Francorchamps. Chris Owen and Scott Newton, your top two. They started in the opposite order off the green flag. Matt Danson taking that third place thanks to a brilliantly executed one-stop. Danson DeMerchant rounding out the top 5 with Leslie and Bowen finishing on the lead lap. Michael Skurlock comes home in 8th, Thomas O'Leary 9th, and Mirko Dortanak rounding out the top 10.
11th at the line, Wayne Taylor. Daniel Stevens finishing just behind him, ahead of Harold Stadler and Lucas Schleppers in 14th. Johnny Bell in 15th, plus 8 for him, not a bad drive. John King in 16th. Dwayne Burns, 17th. Matthew Clowett, Jonathan Bain, and Alexander Sheridan rounded out your top 20, and they were the last of your finishers 2 laps down.
Yeah, retirements, Jack Stiles, Jake Fox, Daryl Hockey, and Dean Mole. Huge shame for those guys, but just goes to show it's not just luck, but it's also reaction times and making sure that you're in the right place at the right time in order to get a good finish here. Well, now I guess we got to reflect on that, because that was quite possibly one of the fastest rounds of the majors this year in terms of pace, in terms of the circuit, in terms of the car, and really it showed that Owen and Newton, with their open wheel high downforce experience, coming out on top.
Yeah, and the feeling I really got is that when push came to shove, wheel to wheel and such, Chris Owen had just a little bit more pace, a little bit more confidence, but Newton was a cool head, and he had, worked out a little bit of strategy difference, and that's what really kept him in the race as well, but then just could not quite match Chris Owen out on track. But I have a lot of respect for the way those guys raced each other, the way they approached it, and the just massive amount of talent and consistency they brought. You cannot say enough about how tough these cars are over a Grand Prix distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fun does not end in the majors. It was a great clean battle between Chris Owen and Scott Newton for that race win. But Ryan, I think we're going to have to call it there. Next round of the championship is on the 13th of September. We jump into the USAC Silver Crown at Indianapolis Raceway Park. That's going to be quite interesting. Oval racing.
Okay, that should be a different one for sure. I don't have any sort of form book for that other than Matt Danson, and might be very much a lottery for who comes up to challenge him or come second best maybe.
Yes, indeed. Well, you'll be able to catch that right here on the iRacing Esports Network on the 13th of September, the next round of the International Division of the Majors Series. But it was Chris Owen, Scott Newton, and Matt Danson who took your podium honours here today. Championship leader and reigning champion Cameron Dance getting a crucial 4th place with a good gap back to his nearest rival, Thomas O'Leary. The championship continues. We got 4 rounds to go. Who's going to come out on top? You'll find out along with us.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?